My attention-seeking twin sister faked medical emergencies to ruin every milestone of mine, then went nuclear at my company award ceremony by systematically dismantling my career, reputation, and life. So I chose the ultimate revenge by disappearing and letting her live with the empty life she orchestrated. My twin sister Emma tried to humiliate me at my company's award ceremony, so I made sure she'd never show her face in public again. Growing up, Emma had perfected the art of destroying my moments. When I won the 4th grade spelling bee, she fainted on stage during the award presentation. The paramedics rushed in, teachers panicked, and my victory was forgotten in the chaos. Later, she admitted she'd held her breath until she passed out. I just wanted to see if it would work, she said, smiling. At my 13th birthday party, right as I was about to blow out my candles, Emma announced that she might be pregnant. She hadn't even gotten her period yet, but she'd researched symptoms online and performed a convincing panic attack. My parents spent my birthday in the ER while my friends went home confused. The cake went uncut. I never challenged it. How could I? Everyone believed her. The girl who fainted, who had allergies, who struggled with her mental health. I was just the cold, achievement-obsessed twin who made her sister feel inadequate by existing. I started hiding my achievements. When I got a perfect SAT score, my plan was not to tell anyone, until Emma found the letter. That night at dinner, she announced she was struggling with an eating disorder. In the months that followed, she spent hours every day in the bathroom vomiting loud enough for all of us to hear. She went from world's biggest foodie to the most starving girl in America. The worst was when I got into MIT. I'd kept the application secret and made sure the acceptance letter was sent to my friend's house. But Emma went through my laptop and found the confirmation email. That evening, she swallowed a bottle of aspirin in front of me. "I'm so worthless compared to you," she'd sobbed as I called 911. Maybe everyone would be happier if I just disappeared. I knew deep down it was part of her attention-seeking scheme, but the image of Emma salivating at the lips, keeled over on the verge of death, was burned into my mind. So much so that I deferred enrollment to stay home and support her. And 3 days later, she made a miraculous recovery and spent my gap year talking about how guilty she felt for ruining my future. A year later, I reapplied for college. 4 years in a different state, building my own identity without being Emma's twin. I went low contact, occasional texts, holiday visits, but nothing more. For the first time ever, I was free to succeed without watching someone destroy themselves for attention. After graduation, I landed a job at a tech startup. 3 years of hard work later, I was being recognized at our annual company awards ceremony for leading a project that saved the company millions. I'd mentioned it to Emma during a rare phone call, and she'd insisted on flying out to celebrate with me. "I'm so proud of you," she'd said. "I want to be there to support you." I should have known better. The ceremony was held at an upscale hotel, with colleagues, executives, and industry professionals in attendance. Emma arrived early, charming everyone with her stories and energy. She seemed genuinely happy for me. During the cocktail hour after I received my award, I was introducing Emma to my team when she launched into her performance. "I'm so proud of my sister," she announced loudly. "I used to have to speak for her at family events because she'd literally hide in the bathroom crying from anxiety, so this is huge for her." My colleague Mark looked confused. "Really? She's one of our best presenters." Emma laughed, that practiced laugh I knew so well. "Oh, she's learned to fake it well." But growing up, kids called her creepy twin behind her back. I spent my entire childhood doing damage control. She tried to smile like it was a joke, but I could hear the sharpness in her voice. My manager Lisa raised an eyebrow. "I've never noticed any social difficulties. She manages our biggest client relationships." "Well, you don't see what I see as her twin," Emma continued, her voice carrying across the room. "She used to practice conversations in the mirror for hours. I'd catch her rehearsing hello over and over." Something clicked at that moment. Emma had a successful marketing career, a loving fiancé, and what seemed like a perfect life. She wasn't struggling with her mental health. She wasn't insecure. She just couldn't stand to see me shine without dimming my light. I set down my champagne glass. "Emma, stop lying about me." The conversations around us quieted. She blinked, her practiced smile faltering. "You've spent our entire lives making sure you were the only one people noticed. At every one of my achievements, you had to find a way to ruin it. You're having some kind of breakdown." "No, Emma," I interrupted. "You had the breakdown. Every time. On cue. The second anything good happened to me, you had an emergency. You're not my protective twin. You're the person who taught me that family can be your biggest threat." Finally, she froze in her tracks and left me alone. I didn't realize it yet, but my comments had stung Emma, and she wanted to use them to ruin everything I had ever worked for. I walked back to my hotel room in a daze, my hands still shaking from the confrontation. The hallway seemed endless, each step echoing against the marble floors. My phone buzzed incessantly in my clutch, but I couldn't bring myself to look at it yet. I needed a moment to process what had just happened. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. A couple got on at the 3rd floor, chatting happily about the ceremony, and I pressed myself against the wall, hoping they wouldn't recognize me. My reflection in the mirrored doors showed someone I barely recognized. Mascara slightly smudged, face flushed, award still clutched in my left hand like a lifeline. Back in my room, I kicked off my heels and sank onto the bed. The phone continued its relentless buzzing. Finally, I pulled it out, and my stomach dropped. 47 notifications. My LinkedIn app showed dozens of new messages. Instagram had exploded with tags, but it was the text message preview that made my blood run cold. Emma had already posted a video. My fingers trembled as I opened Instagram. There it was, posted just 20 minutes ago. Emma's tear-streaked face filling the screen. The caption read, "When your own sister attacks you for trying to share in her joy. I'm heartbroken." The video had already accumulated over 300 views and climbing. I clicked play, though every instinct screamed not to. Emma's voice, perfectly calibrated to sound broken but brave, filled my hotel room. She described how she'd flown across the country to support me, only to be verbally assaulted in front of my colleagues. The camera angle was strategic. You could see her tears, but not the calculating look I knew was in her eyes. The comments were already pouring in. "So sorry this happened to you. Your sister sounds toxic. Family Family can be so cruel. My colleagues were starting to engage. Mark's wife had commented with a string of heart emojis. My phone rang. Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text from Emma popped up. You humiliated me. Now I'll show everyone who you really are. The phrasing sent a chill down my spine. She'd said those exact words when we were 12, after I'd won a science fair and she'd tried to claim I'd stolen her idea. I immediately started screenshotting everything. The video, the comments, her text. My hands moved on autopilot. Years of documenting her behavior kicking in. Once I had everything saved to my cloud storage, I blocked her on all platforms. The silence that followed felt both liberating and ominous. My phone rang again. This time it was Lisa, my manager. I answered on the third ring. She asked if I was okay, mentioned that someone had forwarded her a concerning video. I kept my response measured, professional, explained it was a family matter, that I was handling it. She seemed satisfied, but reminded me we had the client presentation Monday morning. I assured her I'd be ready. Sleep didn't come easily. I lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emma's performance at the ceremony, the way she'd smiled while destroying my reputation. By 3 a.m., I gave up and opened my laptop to prepare for Monday's presentation. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, hoping to avoid the inevitable questions. The building was mostly empty, just a few other early risers grabbing coffee in the break room. I made it to my desk without incident and buried myself in spreadsheets. Around 9 a.m., Mark appeared at my cubicle. His usual easy smile was replaced with something more tentative. He asked if we could talk privately. My stomach sank. In the small conference room, he shifted uncomfortably before speaking. His wife had seen the video. She was concerned about his work environment, worried about the kind of people he was associating with. He emphasized that he didn't believe Emma's version, but his wife was pregnant, and she was anxious about him being around drama. I nodded, kept my expression neutral, assured him that it was an isolated family incident, that it wouldn't affect our work. He seemed relieved, but still uncertain as he left. Back at my desk, I noticed several colleagues glancing my way. Conversations seemed to stop when I walked by. The video was spreading through our professional network like wildfire. I pulled up LinkedIn and saw the damage. Emma had tagged our company, used hashtags related to workplace wellness and family trauma. She'd turned my professional achievement into her personal platform. I had two choices: respond publicly and risk escalating the situation, or stay silent and let her control the narrative. Every instinct screamed to defend myself, to post my own video explaining the years of manipulation. But I knew that would just feed the drama, make me look defensive. I chose silence, closed LinkedIn, turned off notifications, and focused on the client presentation. The work had always been my escape, and I wasn't going to let Emma take that from me. But Emma interpreted my silence differently. By lunch, she'd posted a follow-up. This time, she discussed how my pattern of aggression had affected her throughout our lives. She painted herself as the perpetual victim, trying to love a sister who only knew how to hurt. The post was crafted brilliantly, just enough detail to seem credible, just enough emotion to garner sympathy. HR called that afternoon. They needed to schedule a mandatory meeting for the following morning. Company policy, they explained, when situations might affect the workplace environment. I agreed, my voice steady despite the growing knot in my stomach. My parents called 17 times. I finally answered on the 18th. Mom was crying, demanding to know what I'd done to Emma. Dad's voice in the background asked why I couldn't just get along with my sister. I tried to explain, but they'd already seen the video, already formed their opinions. The call ended with Mom saying they were driving down to sort this out. Then came the email that made my blood run cold. Our biggest client, the one whose contract I'd worked so hard to secure, had concerns. They'd been contacted by someone claiming to be my sister, warning them about my unstable behavior. The email was polite but firm. They needed assurance that their account was in good hands. I immediately called the client, spent 40 minutes reassuring them. During the conversation, they mentioned details about my childhood that only Emma could have known. She'd called them personally, presenting herself as a concerned family member trying to protect them from her troubled sister. The scope of Emma's campaign became clear. She wasn't just posting videos for sympathy. She was systematically contacting everyone in my professional network. I pulled up LinkedIn again and saw the pattern. She'd viewed profiles of all my colleagues, my clients, even former classmates who worked in the industry. Lisa called me into her office. She'd noticed something interesting on Emma's company website. Emma was listed as a crisis management specialist with expertise in reputation rehabilitation. This wasn't just revenge. This was literally her job. The security team from the hotel had called. They had footage of the entire encounter from the ceremony. My heart leaped, finally, proof that Emma had been lying. But there was a catch. They couldn't release it without a legal subpoena, company policy. I thanked them and made a note to contact a lawyer. That evening, I sat in my apartment trying to process the day. In less than 48 hours, Emma had managed to threaten my job, my reputation, and my sanity. The girl who'd spent our childhood creating emergencies had turned professional. My phone buzzed with an email from HR. The meeting had been moved up. They needed to see me first thing in the morning. The subject line made my stomach drop. Administrative leave pending investigation. I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. If Emma wanted to play professional victim, I'd need to document everything. Every post, every comment, every interaction. I'd learned long ago that the only defense against Emma's lies was meticulous truth. As I worked, a text came through from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, then recognized the area code, Emma's city. The message was simple. This is just the beginning. I screenshotted that too, adding it to my growing file. Emma had finally shown her hand. This wasn't about hurt feelings or family dynamics. This was war, and she'd been preparing for it her entire career. The next morning arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully for the HR meeting, choosing my most professional outfit. The office felt different as I walked through. Conversations definitely stopped now. Eyes followed me to the conference room. The HR director, someone I'd barely interacted with before, sat across from me with a thick folder. She explained that given the external situation and its potential impact on the workplace, they felt it best to place me on administrative leave while they investigated. I would retain my salary, but I couldn't access company systems or contact clients. I nodded, signed the papers, packed my desk under the watchful eye of security. 4 years of hard work reduced to a cardboard box. As I walked out, I caught sight of Mark avoiding my gaze. Lisa gave me a sympathetic look, but said nothing. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, processing what had just happened. Emma had won this round, but as I drove home, something crystallized in my mind. She'd made one mistake. She'd shown me exactly what she was capable of, exactly how she operated. I'd spent my entire life running from Emma's chaos, but maybe it was time to stop running. The drive home from the office stretched endlessly before me. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The cardboard box containing 4 years of my professional life sat in the passenger seat like a silent witness to my downfall. At every red light, I checked my phone, watching Emma's campaign unfold in real time across social media platforms. Back in my apartment, I dumped the box on my kitchen counter and began mapping out Emma's strategy on my laptop. She'd posted 3 more videos since the morning, each one carefully timed for maximum engagement. Her follower count had jumped by thousands. Comments poured in from strangers offering support, sharing their own stories of toxic siblings. The narrative was solidifying with every passing hour. My doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw my building manager holding an envelope. He explained that someone had called the management company expressing concerns about a tenant's mental state. They needed to conduct a welfare check. I assured him I was fine, took the envelope, and closed the door. Inside was a formal notice requiring me to meet with building management within 48 hours. Emma had found where I lived. I pulled up my lease agreement, searching for any clause they might use against me. My phone vibrated with a text from James, my boyfriend of 2 years. He was at a work happy hour when his coworker Robert mentioned seeing a viral video about someone with my name. James wanted to know if everything was okay. Racing to his apartment, I tried to explain the situation. James listened, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. He pulled up the videos on his phone, watching Emma's performance with a furrowed brow. When I finished explaining our history, he sat quietly for a long moment before suggesting that maybe I should consider apologizing to end the situation. The words hit me like a physical blow. The next morning, I woke to find Emma had posted a childhood photo of us at age 7, arms around each other, matching dresses and gap-toothed smiles. The caption read, "I miss my sister. Mental health struggles can tear families apart, but I'll never stop loving her." The post had been shared over 1,000 times. My best friend Catherine called while I was making coffee. We'd known each other since college, and she'd heard bits about Emma over the years. Now she admitted Emma had reached out to her through Facebook, expressing concern about my well-being. Catherine's voice carried an edge of uncertainty as she asked if I was really okay. I spent the morning creating a timeline of Emma's actions, documenting every incident from childhood through the present. The pattern was clear to me, but would anyone else see it? My savings account showed $18,000, meant for a house down payment, now potentially needed for legal fees. The welfare check meeting with building management went poorly. They'd received multiple calls about concerning behavior, including reports that I'd been seen talking to myself in the parking garage. I hadn't been in the parking garage in weeks. They gave me a warning and suggested I seek professional help. Emma's next move came through my therapy group. I'd been attending monthly sessions for general anxiety for 2 years. When I arrived for the Tuesday evening meeting, the therapist pulled me aside. A new member had joined last week, a woman dealing with family trauma who'd shared a story about her sister's violent outburst at a public event. The details were unmistakably about me, told from Emma's perspective. I sat through the session, feeling the weight of suspicious glances from group members who'd once been supportive. Emma sat across the circle, dabbing at her eyes as she described her fear and heartbreak. When the therapist asked if anyone wanted to respond, I remained silent, knowing any reaction would feed her narrative. After the session, Emma approached me in the parking lot. She wore my favorite scarf, one that had gone missing during her last visit a year ago. Her expression radiated false concern as she suggested we talk. I got in my car and drove away without acknowledging her. My parents arrived the next afternoon, having driven 5 hours after Emma called them in hysterics. They stood at my door, mom's face puffy from crying, dad's jaw set in disappointment. I let them in, brewed tea, and tried to explain my side. They'd already seen the videos, read the comments, formed their opinions. Mom kept asking why I couldn't just get along with my sister. Dad wondered aloud where they'd gone wrong raising us. The conversation revealed something chilling. Emma had been calling them weekly for months, planting seeds of concern about my mental state. She'd mentioned mood swings I didn't have, isolation that didn't exist, career obsession that worried her. My parents had been primed to believe her narrative long before the ceremony. That evening, while my parents stayed at a nearby hotel, I received an email from a law firm. Emma had filed for a restraining order, citing the ceremony confrontation and claiming ongoing harassment. The hearing was scheduled for next week. The filing date caught my attention. She'd submitted it the morning after the ceremony, hours before posting her first video. I withdrew $5,000 from savings and hired a lawyer the next morning. She reviewed the restraining order petition, noting the calculated language and professional preparation. Emma had included screenshots of old text messages, selectively edited to remove context. One showed me saying, "I can't stand being around you," originally from a conversation where Emma had shown up hammered to my graduation dinner. My lawyer advised gathering character witnesses and documentation of Emma's pattern of behavior. I reached out to Catherine, explaining that I needed her testimony about incidents she'd witnessed over the years. Her response came hours later. She thought it best to remain neutral in a family dispute. James grew increasingly distant as the situation escalated. His coworker Robert had started dating someone new, a charming woman in marketing who'd reached out to him on LinkedIn. When James showed me her profile photo at dinner, my blood ran cold. Emma stared back at me, using a slightly different name. She'd inserted herself into my social circle. The restraining order hearing arrived faster than expected. I sat with my lawyer, watching Emma enter with her legal team. She'd styled herself as the perfect victim. Conservative dress, minimal makeup, tissues clutched in her hand. Her lawyer painted me as unstable, aggressive, jealous of my twins' success. They presented edited text conversations, the ceremony video, statements from concerned parties. When my turn came, I tried to provide context. I showed the complete text conversations, explained the pattern of behavior, presented my timeline. But without corroborating witnesses, it looked like desperate deflection. The judge granted a temporary restraining order, pending a full hearing. I couldn't contact Emma or come within 500 feet of her. The professional fallout accelerated. HR extended my administrative leave indefinitely. Colleagues who'd once been friendly stopped responding to messages. My biggest client formally requested a new account manager. Lisa sent a brief email suggesting I focus on resolving my personal situation. I discovered Emma had been busy during the hearing. She'd posted about the legal proceedings, framing the restraining order as necessary protection from an unstable sibling. The comments section filled with survivors of family violence sharing their support. My professional reputation crumbled in real time. My apartment building's management company sent another notice. They'd received complaints about loud arguments and concerning behavior. Security footage showed a woman matching my description acting erratically in common areas. I requested to see the footage, but they claimed technical difficulties. The notice gave me 30 days to vacate voluntarily or face eviction proceedings. James asked me to meet him at a coffee shop. He sat across from me, unable to make eye contact, and explained that his boss had received concerned calls about his girlfriend's mental state. The company couldn't risk the association. He needed to choose between our relationship and his career. He chose his career, moving out while I sat in my lawyer's office reviewing Emma's latest filing. Alone in my apartment that night, I found myself doing exactly what Emma had always claimed, obsessively documenting her every move, screenshotting posts, analyzing patterns. I'd become the paranoid, isolated person she'd been telling everyone I was. The realization hit like a physical blow, but I couldn't stop. I created a fake LinkedIn profile using details from a deceased college classmate, needing access to Emma's professional network. The ethical line blurred as I justified each transgression as necessary for survival. Her connections revealed something interesting. 3 former colleagues who'd left her previous company around the same time she did. I messaged one cautiously. The response was immediate and frightening. She'd experienced something similar. Emma had systematically destroyed her reputation after she'd received a promotion Emma wanted. The woman had signed an NDA as part of her exit agreement, terrified of round 2. She wished me luck but couldn't help. Emma's boyfriend Robert revealed himself at the next social gathering. He approached James's friend group with Emma on his arm, introducing her as his new girlfriend. She wore a dress identical to one I owned, styled her hair like mine. When someone mentioned the resemblance, she laughed and said she'd always admired her sister's style, despite everything. The financial strain mounted. Legal fees consumed my savings. Credit cards covered groceries and bills. My company announced a restructuring, and my position was eliminated while I remained on leave. The termination letter arrived the same day Emma posted about exciting new career opportunities. A confrontation became inevitable when we both showed up at the same grocery store. I tried to leave, but Emma followed, speaking loudly about her concern for my well-being. When I turned to walk away, she stumbled dramatically, crying out that I'd pushed her. Other shoppers rushed to help, phones already recording. The incident went viral within hours. My lawyer called with bad news. The company had officially terminated my employment, citing the ongoing situation as a liability. Insurance would end in 30 days. My replacement had already been hired, someone with an impressive resume and glowing recommendations from Emma's company. Mom called that evening with an ultimatum. She'd testify at the restraining order hearing, but only if I dropped everything, moved home, and agreed to family counseling. The condition was clear: submit to Emma's narrative in exchange for maternal support. I declined, knowing it would mean facing the hearing alone. The security footage from multiple buildings finally surfaced through my lawyer's subpoena. It showed Emma entering my apartment building repeatedly over the past 2 months, despite claiming she didn't know where I lived. She'd been the woman acting erratically in common areas, wearing similar clothes to mine, but without additional evidence, it merely looked like a desperate attempt to shift blame. My therapist, in our final session before I could no longer afford it, gently suggested that my actions might be validating Emma's concerns. The way I'd isolated myself, the fake LinkedIn profile, the obsessive documentation, from the outside, it supported her narrative perfectly. I left the session understanding that fighting Emma meant becoming what she'd always said I was. I sat in my car outside Emma's office building at 2 a.m., laptop open, working on an anonymous blog exposing her history. The security guard knocked on my window, asking why I'd been there every night this week. I hadn't realized I'd fallen into a pattern. Emma had mapped my life, and now I was mapping hers. The blog gained traction slowly. Other victims reached out privately, sharing similar stories. Emma had left a trail of destroyed careers and relationships, always positioning herself as the victim, but none would go public, all bound by NDAs or fear. I published their stories anonymously, building a case that no one with power would acknowledge. Emma's response was swift. She posted about cyberstalking, about the anonymous harassment she'd been experiencing. Her company issued a statement supporting their employee through this difficult time. She'd weaponized my defense into further proof of harassment. The eviction notice arrived as I was packing office supplies into boxes. 30 days had passed. I needed to leave voluntarily or face legal action. With no job, depleted savings, and a restraining order on record, finding new housing seemed impossible. Emma had systematically removed every foundation of my life. During a moment of desperate clarity, I found myself in Emma's office building with a small bag of pills, planning to plant them in her desk. I'd learned her schedule, knew when she'd be in meetings. The security cameras had blind spots I'd mapped during my late-night vigils. I made it to her floor before stopping, hand on her office door, realizing I'd crossed a line I couldn't come back from. But Emma's cameras caught me anyway. The attempted break-in became evidence of escalating dangerous behavior. The restraining order was extended and expanded. I was banned from the entire business district. My transformation into the unstable sister she'd always described was complete. Every small victory I'd achieved had created a new vulnerability for Emma to exploit. When I'd exposed her pattern, she'd thanked me publicly for helping her become more resilient. When I'd revealed her lies, she'd used it as proof of my obsession. The fight for truth had become evidence of instability. My parents invited both of us for Thanksgiving, despite everything. Mom insisted it was neutral ground where we could work things out. I knew it was a trap, but with nowhere else to go and no money for a hotel, I loaded my car with what remained of my possessions and drove home. The childhood bedroom remained unchanged. Photos of Emma and me at various ages covering the walls. Matching trophies from activities we'd done together. Evidence of a closeness that had never truly existed. I lay in my old bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing Emma would arrive tomorrow with her latest performance prepared. She entered the house like visiting royalty, Robert at her side, arms full of gifts for our parents. She'd styled herself as the successful daughter returning home, while I lurked in my childhood room like a ghost. At dinner, she spoke about her new position at a tech startup, the exciting projects ahead. The job sounded familiar because she'd taken my exact position at my former company. The power went out during dessert, a winter storm knocking down lines across the neighborhood. By candlelight, the pretense became harder to maintain. Both of us reached for the knife to cut the pie at the same moment, our hands meeting over the blade. The moment stretched, both of us gripping the handle, neither willing to let go first. Dad's face went red, then white. He clutched his chest, gasping. The knife clattered to the table as we rushed to his side. Mom called 911 while Emma and I performed CPR, working together for the first time in decades. The ambulance arrived as power flickered back on, revealing our father's pale face and our mother's tears. At the hospital, the doctor explained it was a mild heart attack brought on by stress. He'd recover, but needed to avoid stressful situations. Mom looked between Emma and me, her face hard with resolve. She chose Emma to make medical decisions if needed, explaining that she seemed more stable. The final betrayal cut deeper than all the others. I left the hospital as dawn broke, understanding my choices with perfect clarity. I could continue fighting and lose what remained of my family, or I could surrender to Emma's narrative. Neither option offered victory, only different flavors of defeat. Instead, I chose a third path. I walked to my car, drove to my childhood home, and entered through the same window Emma had used for her fake Sewers Light attempts as a teenager. I packed a single bag with essentials, left my phone on my childhood bed, and disappeared into the winter morning. Emma would get everything she wanted, the family, the career, the life she'd orchestrated, but it would be built on lies everyone knew but accepted. She'd won by making me into the villain she'd always needed me to be. My freedom came from finally understanding that some games can only be won by refusing to play. I drove toward a new city, using the skills Emma had inadvertently taught me about reinvention. Behind me, she was already posting about her sister's mysterious disappearance, setting up her next performance. Ahead lay the possibility of a life where being Emma's twin no longer defined me. The highway stretched endlessly forward, each mile putting distance between who I'd been forced to become and who I might still be.